Dark bleatings, everybody. I have a little list for you again today. Now this is film related again. I've really been enjoying making these. I thought that for you today, for people who are like-minded, who have similar tastes to me maybe, I would compile my top 10 horror films that don't rely on jump scares. Jump scares, as we all know, are just, basically when a loud sound accompanies something scary and makes you jump out of your skin. And I'm not a huge fan of these because very often they feel really undeserved, like there hasn't really been an effort to create the kind of tension that would lead to fear. They've just thrown something really loud at you to startle you, and so you're not really scared because of fear from what's going on in the story, but you're scared because you've just been startled out of your skin by something obnoxiously loud. My brother describes that sound as people throwing instruments out of a moving car. That's what it usually sounds like. I'm much more a fan of maybe a slow burn, maybe some more steady pacing, where the horror of the story is really earned. So when you start feeling scared, it's come from a really authentic storytelling place rather than just noises. So this list, I'm not saying that there are zero jump scares in any of these films. I'm sure there are one or two, although none of them are coming to mind as I look at my little list here, but they will be earned. If there are any scares in here that are that ilk, they earned scares in my opinion. So we're gonna go from least favorite to favorite in this top 10 list, but I love all of these films. So in the number 10 position, I have got Vivarium, which came out in 2019. I think that this is a bit of a weird one, and I don't normally see this in people's top 10s for horror films ever. I think that this was a little bit of a Marmite movie, but this is about a couple that are looking to buy their first home in this economy. And they stumble upon this real estate office with a kind of weird real estate agent who lets them know that there's a new neighborhood of all lovely new houses and he's got just the place for them. He takes them there and then very swiftly leaves while they're looking around the house, and then they just find that they cannot get out. They can't get out of this neighborhood. No matter what, they end up back at the house. And then things get progressively weird from there. I've even heard people say that this isn't a horror film, but if this isn't a horror film, I don't know what it is. There's certainly a sci-fi aspect to it, but it's really speculative. It's not, machinery or anything like that we'd recognize. It's fully in this sort of speculative sci-fi horror category for me. What I really enjoyed about this was that everything was just so creepy, and the predicament they're in, it's not one of those scenarios where people are making dumb decisions and they don't just do the obvious thing to escape. Like, you're sat there as a viewer racking your brain trying to figure out how you'd get out of this, or if it was possible, or what you would do if you had to make peace with it you can't. And so I thought that there were just multiple layers of horror that just had me feeling more and more anxious as the film went on, but in a good way. For you want to feel something when you're watching horror. Number 9 is a gem of a little indie film called They Look Like People that came out in 2015. My friend Justin recommended this one to me, and I don't know if I would have bothered watching it if he hadn't. But generally speaking, I trust my friend's opinion because I don't think he has recommended something that I haven't loved. So They Look Like People is a really quiet, creepy little film about a guy that one day bumps into an old uni friend, I think, and this uni friend has really fallen on some hard times, it seems. He doesn't really have anywhere to go or anywhere to live, and so he kind of offers him his couch for a little while, and it becomes apparent that his friend has got some very, very, very deep problems, maybe some emotional problems, and there's this ambiguity about what's going on. Like, the horror scenario in this film is so horrifying, and generally I really don't like stories that deal with mental health quite often, but that's just because it's not because they deal with mental health, it's because I feel like mental health is so mishandled very often quite offensively with stereotypes, especially in horror films. So that's like a category of horror film I will just nope out of. I just won't even bother most of the time. But I thought that this one was handled really, really delicately, but it's not necessarily a mental health film, because there's some ambiguity about what's going on here, and the thing that could be going on is horrible. So this was another one that just really made my skin crawl with dread, and I really, really enjoyed it. Number 8, another recommendation from Justin, thank you Justin, is Saint Maud, that came out in 2019. So this is about a very religious lady who works in at-home care, and her newest client is a very well-known performer. I think she's a dancer, and this is about Maud's past catching up to her in some ways. Once again, we are tackling a little bit of mental health stuff here, but again, very ambiguous, because the horror that we're experiencing could be real, but if it's not real to us, it is very real to Maud at the very least, but it could go either way. And there are just some, again, this is just building and building and building to something, and the payoff is one of the greatest payoffs if you like horror. But oh my god, it's, I don't even want to say what sort of category I'd put this ending in, but it is very striking. And I thought that the people who made this film did it with a lot of restraint. Like, they could have gone a lot bigger in some of the scenes, but it would have made it hokey and ruined the realism of it. So I thought that the balance of restraint and horror scenes was just so expertly done here. It's such a great film. Yes, so Saint Maud, that's my number 8 pick. Number 7, I've talked about this a little bit here and there over the years, but it's Pyewacket. That came out in 2017. And I think a lot of people haven't given Pyewacket a chance because the title sounds silly, but oh my gosh, this is sort of the 3 films that I've given you. I guess you might put these, Vivarium was higher budget than They Look Like People in St. Maud, but I guess you'd put those in like the elevated horror category. I hate that term, but art house basically. But yeah, Pyewacket is very much like what you'd expect of a horror film rather than existentialism and things like that. But it's about a teenage girl whose mum moves them to a new home. I think that her dad has died. I don't think he's just left them, if I remember. I think her dad died, and so this teenager is like full of teenage angst plus grief over the family situation, and she is super angry with her mum for moving her out of the home she knows, because she oh wait, did he have an affair and leave? There's something going on with the mum anyway. She wants out of the house. But yeah, she's really angry with her mum because she doesn't have a decision about this. So she's dealing with a big change in her life at a really emotional, difficult time anyway. And then she has to leave her school and friends behind, and also her neighborhood and the home with all of her memories in it. So there's a lot of tension between her and her mum. And after a particularly nasty argument where her mum said something she should not have said, she storms off into the woods, and she's a bit into some occult stuff, as a lot of us teenagers were, and she does something and is surprised when it works, unpleasantly surprised. And then from there, it's so creepy. It is so creepy. There are some scenes that just really left me feeling really cold. Laurie Holden, who was in The Walking Dead, I was gonna say Laurie,
Voiceover Kaylee here, just letting you know that this was my brain breaking in real time for the longest I think it's ever just fritzed out. And this went on for, no joke, 53 seconds before I gave up on trying to find the name Andrea from my memory banks, and I googled it. So I'm going to cut this here. There's no need for you to have to watch me realising that my marbles have well and truly scattered all over the floor.
Laurie Holden, my brain just completely shut down and I couldn't remember the name of her character in The Walking Dead. She played Andrea in The Walking Dead. This was a really standout horror performance for me, and because this film is sort of like a lesser seen horror film, I don't think that Laurie Holden has been given her proper dues as a really, really good horror actor. I would love to see her in more stuff, and definitely more roles like this one. Yes, it gave me chills. I really loved it. I don't know if there are any single like actual orchestra stabby jump scares in it, but I had the same feeling in some moments. But yeah, it's a really, really great gem of a little horror film, and I really wish more people would see it so I could talk about it with people. Number 6, we have the Witch. as my pal over at Literary Love 123 would say, The Witch, that came out in 2015. Wow, did it come out 10 years ago? Really struggling with times and how old everything makes me feel when I realise how long ago it was and how I was an adult when it came out and how it just feels like yesterday. Anyway, Robert Eggers made The Witch, and I'll admit, even for a British person, I had to put the subtitles on the first time I watched this because we're in sort of puritanical times and English was very different then. So, the accents and everything. But this is about a family that they kind of cast out of their town, or they leave their town and they kind of living in the middle of nowhere. There's a new baby in the family, and then some scary things happen, and the eldest daughter is being accused of witchcraft. And this film is just stylistic gorgeousness. If you like a slow burn horror film, and again, I guess you'd put this in the elevated horror category as well. I just felt like the characters and the story, it was just all so natural with this potentially really sort of like demonic element to it. This is a Marmite one. Some people just thought that this was pretentious shit, and then there were people like me that just ate it up, but I absolutely loved it. I much prefer something like that builds slowly, that you can get really, really engrossed in. If you are watching this for the first time, I would recommend watching this like in the dark, maybe in the nighttime, in complete silence. Like don't watch it with a group of people where people might talk over it, because it does, like, if you can really focus on it, it's a really, really great film. But the first time I tried to watch it, I was with other people. Some of them were a bit bored. It like took me out of it. So I would, yeah, go in for like the full viewing experience if you're gonna do it. But yes, no jump scares in this one, but some scares. Number 5, this is a nice, bright, cheerful one. It's Midsommer from 2019. This is Ari Aster's second feature film after Hereditary. And Midsommer is not higher on my list because the story is very predictable. You know exactly what this is. This is a group of uni students plus our protagonist, who is the girlfriend of one of them, and she's kind of like tagged along, and they don't really want her there. She's suffered a really horrible family tragedy though, so they, like, her boyfriend feels obligated, blah 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 blah. But they go somewhere in Europe for the Midsommer Festival, where one of their friends is from, and he's taken them as guests. They're PhD students, a couple of them, and then yeah, there's like a nice little group, and then one by one they kind of start disappearing. The group realizes that this little commune is very different to how regular society works, and you know where this film is going pretty much. Like, you might have some like questions about where it might go in the very, very end, but you know what kind of where we are with this. The thing I really liked about this is, once again, this is just filling you with dread about what's going to happen to people, and it's kind of fun seeing how things go each and every time. There was so much work put into the set and the costumes and like every single line of dialogue. It's a masterpiece, really. I can't even imagine the hours and hours and hours that they poured into every single frame of this film. It's beautiful. It's not the scariest on the list, but it is a very competent horror film thematically, and then with some of the stuff that's going on, it's quite a shock to the system, in contrast to how bright and colourful and flowery everything is. But yeah, great horror film. Not the scariest on the list, but way better than most films that I've seen that have come out in the last 10 years, if I'm being honest. Number 4, another that I know that people really like, but I never see people talking about it, is The Autopsy of Jane Doe from 2016. This one is actually quite difficult to talk about because this is a film that I would put in a category called films I can't tell you the category of because the category is a spoiler, and I do not want to spoil this for you. If you're a horror fan and you haven't seen the Autopsy of Jane Doe, I think it's on Netflix, it might be on Amazon Prime, but I highly recommend this one, and go in blind. Don't even read the tagline or anything, because I've seen some stuff that gives it away, and it really annoys me because there is such, like, the hook of this film is so good. So this is what I can tell you about it. And I will say this one, I do remember there being a jump scare in there that irritated me a bit because it spoiled an otherwise flawless film for me, but it didn't detract from like the overall greatness of it, if that makes sense. So this is about a father and son. Are they called morticians? People who do autopsies? I think pathologists. I'm not sure. But anyway, they have a pathology lab, and it's a small town, and so like the mysterious dead bodies come to them, and the police find a Jane Doe buried in a basement, and she's incredibly well preserved. So they're trying to figure out what happened to her, and so most of the film takes place like in the middle of the night. There's a big storm, so we've got like a cool setting, and they're, you know, taking her apart, trying to figure out what's going on, and everything they find opens up more questions. And for the life of me, I could not figure out where this was going as I was watching it. It was getting creepier and creepier and creepier. I was getting more and more scared for our father and son, who look great. I love these like small feeling films where we've got like one location and maybe just one or two characters. It's so good, it just builds so well, and I'd like to think of myself as like a seasoned horror fan. I've watched so many different types of horror, so many films. I've been watching it and reading it and playing it in games for decades, and I had like a couple of ideas about what this was going to turn out to be, but when you find out, it's so much fun. It's just so much fun, especially for a film made in the last like decade. So I highly recommend that. That's one of my favorites of the last 10 years easily. Number 3. There are a couple of films with this title. It's The Invitation from 2015. This is not the one about vampires. This is, which I actually liked that one as well actually, but that's a bit different. So The Invitation, this is about a guy and his partner, and they're invited to his ex-wife's house for a dinner party, and they go, and the history of him and the ex-wife is that they had a child that died, I think. So they've got a really like still quite emotional relationship with each other, but his partner is very understanding and encouraging him to try and make peace with certain things. And they get to this dinner party, and there's a couple of mutual friends there, and then there's a couple of people that they don't know, and the wife and her new partner introduce them all, and they join some sort of group at some point. And the less I can say about this one, the better. But our main character, who's the ex-husband, is just, he feels very uncomfortable with his ex-wife. They've got, again, very painful history. He's uncomfortable about being in the house again, and he is suspicious of these new people. He doesn't like them, and the more the film goes on, the more reason he finds to get quite paranoid about what's actually going on at this dinner party. But it's framed in a way that we don't know if he's being justifiably paranoid, like, or if he's being paranoid at all and he's right. We don't know for a while. It's just such a great film. One of, like, great ending, absolutely great ending. I love films that play with ambiguity but then they give you a solid answer at the end, and this one, I've seen this a bunch of times. It's a really masterful script work, I think, dialogue and character dynamics. It was really, really good. Number 2. This was my number 1, but I cannot justify putting it above the number 1 spot. But I love it. This is one of my favourite films of all time. This is The Blackcoat's Daughter from 2015. I think in the UK the title it came out under was February, but I think most people refer to it as The Blackcoat's Daughter. This is, like, I think a lower budget one. This is starring Kiernan Shipka, Emma Roberts. Yeah, Emma Roberts. So this was a really interesting one. This is right up my street. This is about a young girl, a teenage girl, played by Keenan Shipka, who was amazing in this, by the way. You probably know her from The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Completely different character here. She it goes to a boarding school and it closes for winter, but her parents don't arrive when they should to pick her up, and there's just her and one other girl in this boarding school, which is run by nuns. And some real creepy things start to happen, and then we have this dual storyline with this other character played by Emma Roberts, and she's traveling somewhere and she's hitched a ride, and we don't know anything about her other than clearly she's done something. It seems that she has done something that she's trying to get away from. So we're alternating between these two characters, and I just couldn't figure out initially how they were gonna end up, like the storylines were gonna come together, but it's so good. Because this is such a quiet film, quiet and creepy and getting increasingly creepier, and I was like, what's the theme? Like, what are we doing with this? When the scenes of horror unfold, they are so shocking because, again, the performances are so naturalistic and the storytelling is so naturalistic that it like it's very believable, but it's horrifying, and I just loved it. I could talk all day about this film. I wish I could talk about it in spoilers, but I just don't want to spoil it for you. But again, if you're someone who likes like creepy, you know, not slow paced, but takes its time to get there, you might like this. And then my number one spot. This is a much louder film, as it happens. It's The Thing from 1982. I recently rewatched it, and I was like, although there are scenes where there are things jumping around and it gets very loud in places, there aren't, you know, just unearned orchestra stabby jump scare bullshit things going on. If you haven't seen this, like, I've come to the uncomfortable realization that because a big patch of my audience here on YouTube under the age of 30, a lot of you, I can accept, will not have seen this, because it was not only before your time, it was only mildly before my time. I was born in 1986, so 4 years later, but I saw this as a teenager. I can also accept that if you see 1982 next to a film, you might not be interested because to you it will be old. But The Thing is amazing. This is sci-fi horror. This is cold isolated location. We're in a little base. I think it's in Antarctica or something, or Alaska maybe. It's like snow and there's just nowhere to go though, basically. We open with a couple of people in a helicopter trying to shoot a husky, and we don't know why, but it seems very important that they kill it. And then later on, we're in a base with a bunch of other people. It stars Kurt Russell and a whole host of great other people. The whole cast is amazing. All the characters are good. It's basically a bunch of men in this, I think it's like a research facility. That's never the detail that I remember. And something gets in there, something that can imitate them, and so before long paranoia is rife because they don't know who's who, what's what, where's where, what's going on, what's up and what's down. And it's just, yeah, the threat is so high and the characters are so, like, I don't know, it's one of those ones where you think about what you would do if you were in the situation. There are some moments that are like, it's not a comedy by any means, but there are some really like dark humor moments in it that made me laugh. I honestly think that this is one of the greatest horror films ever made. It's in my top three horror films ever made. I just don't think that anything that's come out, I mean, Aliens, other films that were made decades ago basically, but I just don't think that this one has been topped for the kind of horror film that it is. It's fantastic. Okay, so that is my top 10 recommendations for horror films that don't just jump scare you to death. I'd love to know what your favorites are of this kind of category of film. or what you think of the films that I've suggested. If you've seen any in this list and you like them, please let me know in the comments, because I always love to talk about films and I never have anyone to talk about them with, except for my brother. We do talk films a lot, but I would like to talk about them with you. I will be back shortly with another video. I hope that this was enjoyable for you. I hope that this has given you some new things on your to watch list. I will see you soon. Bleed!